Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Pixley. I live in upstate New York, and I'm going to move to Florida. I've had enough of the cold, and most certainly had enough of Andrew Cuomo. Today, I'm going to hopefully bring you some light so that you no longer ever have to worry about having cancer, and that will be enabled to pre-diagnose it up to 2 years before it actually occurs and eliminate it 100% at that stage. Big words. On May 6th of 1986, in the New England Journal of Medicine, a very, very famous and most highly regarded and ethical doctor by the name of John Bylard III of Harvard did a 20-year study, or published a 20-year study that he had done monitoring the results of cancer therapy in this country. And in the last 50 years, there's been no advancement, billions and billions and billions of dollars wasted on cancer research, totally wasted. And his findings were that if you deny or if you refuse treatment, the average lifespan is 12 and a half years. And if you take treatment, it's less than 3. The survival rate after chemo, during chemo and radiation is 3%. It's abysmal. So that's the middle of the story. The beginning of the story is I'm a Vietnam veteran. I took the oath in 1967 to defend the Constitution against all enemies, defend foreign and domestic. And to fast forward, after years of hard labor, after I got out of the service, for lack of better description, I met God. As you say, I was reborn. And that was like putting a rocket on my back, and it just had unlimited amount of force. I couldn't stop myself. I was on fire in that regard. And spent my first 5 years after that in service to others, basically taking care of babies and cooking for a group and driving taxi and doing anything I could to support the group or the family. And I'm a father of 6, and I have 15 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. So that's now. But back then, fast forward to 1990, after I'd been an investment banker and gone through bankruptcy and all brought upon myself. I had an accident, broke my shoulder. And I've had many failings, of course, and I always describe it that once you commit your life to our Father, he kind of puts you through what I call, you're like a toothpaste tube, and he squeezes out all the stuff that's no longer necessary. Maybe it could go back thousands of years. Who knows? It's carried within you. You don't even know it's there sometimes, and it just comes out. And it's traumatic. It puts you through some changes. Sometimes you get a bone broken, and like in my case, to wake up. So after one of those very hard fought, I had 3 houses and 2 brand new cars and lots of kids, but I wasn't living right, and I lost it all. Broke my shoulder, lost it all. I was out of work for 3 months, and when you have a $10,000 a month of bills to pay, it goes down real fast. So the prayer is for an entrepreneur: find a need and fill it. And I went to Woodstock, New York, to see a friend who lived there. And in the Woodstock bookstore, I found a book called Oxygen Therapies by Ed McCabe. And I had purchased a corporation for $1, and I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I just had it on the shelf. And in this book, Ed McCabe, who is now known as Mr. Oxygen, describes all the different ways that you can eliminate disease and cancer with oxygen. And I thought, a cure for cancer? What? And now the lights went off. My company was called Writers and Research. Writers, research. I know what I'll do. I'll get Ed put on the radio, buy his book wholesale. The radio station gets a good guest with good content. He gets the notoriety and sell some of his books, and I can get to sell some of the books. And it was magical. It was like bang, zoom. From bankruptcy to within 3 months, we did approximately $15,000 in sales. And the next year, my next client was Major General Perry Smith, who was the Gulf War consultant to CNN, and he had written a book called Taking Charge, How to Run a Large Organization Successfully. And I got him put on Dr. Schuler's Hour of Power, and within 10 minutes, we sold 60,000 books. We couldn't even go to the bathroom. It was like, oh my God. It was just somebody opened up Niagara Falls on us. So, and that happened again on the 700 Club. And then I had other authors. And then somebody, while I was doing that, somebody stuffed a book in my hand, said, here, if you do that with those guys, do it with this guy. And his name was Christopher Bird. And he wrote a book called The Galilee of the Microscope, and later changed the title to The Persecution and Trial of Gaston Naison. Gaston Naison, Chris Bird, by the way, is a best-selling author who wrote Secret Life of Plants with Peter Tompkins and Secrets of the Soil. And if you haven't read those, you should. It's just packed with things that we need to know. Just on a side note, for example, I don't mind that Monsanto is making a fortune, but I do mind they make a fortune in killing us. So they could be doing biodynamic farming, which Rudolf Steiner did way back. And if they just did that, somebody's got to produce the materials. So anyway, so that's worth reading and worth pressing on, even if you're using it for home. So Gaston Naison in the 60s created a microscope, unlike any other microscope, that was capable of seeing in our living blood what he called a somatide, or tiny body. This had originally been seen by Antoine Béchamp, and before that, Emile Doyen, and they called him the noon lunatic because he'd look through his microscope and he could see these two tiny bodies, but only between 10 and 2 in the afternoon, because of the ultraviolet light. So he got to be called the noon lunatic. Well, Naison picked up from there, and he spent, I don't know, $500,000 in the 60s to build this Zeiss Nikon gigantic microscope with Kerr cells and dark field and all kinds of things that are way too complicated to even explain. And he observed in our blood this somatide is not only in all living things, but it's indestructible, and therefore determined, or at least I either shared with him, or what I say is that this somatide is the last stage of light, because it looks like a light body when it's under the microscope, the last stage of light before it becomes matter, before it becomes DNA. And this has a 3-stage life cycle that's observable in the blood. And when a person starts to go into a degenerative life cycle towards death, it goes into a 16-stage cycle, like you could compare it to the changes in a butterfly, or what's called pleomorphic. And by observing that over time, he was able to pre-diagnose degenerative disease, cancer, AIDS, and other degenerative diseases well in advance. And from that, he developed a medicine which is a camphor compound, very dilute. In the homeopathic terms, it would be a 3C dilution, so totally innocuous, with a molecule of nitrogen and a molecule of ammonium, totally undetectable through gas chromatography. His goal was to strengthen the immune system, but what happened was, because cancer is known to be a nitrogen trap, the molecule of nitrogen sates the cancer cells, and it is well known since the 20s that cancer secretes a hormone that blocks the immune system. You can give it any name you want, but it technically is human chorionic gonadotropin. Any lady that's ever been pregnant has tested and taken a urine test, it detects the HCG in the blood in the early stages, because that's the prevention that God gave us to keep the ovum alive before it becomes implanted. And all cancer secretes that hormone. So the genius and the miracle, surely a miracle because we have it and didn't have it before, is that this medicine shuts off that hormone, and then the body's immune system is enacted or enabled to kill off the cancer. So we've seen since the 60s, millions of people have used it. So what happened was, without side effects, by the way, not one single side effect.
Wait just a second. Go back just a second. So you're saying that HCG Stops cancer cells?
It stops the immune system from detecting the cancer cells.
It stops the immune system from detecting the cancer cells. So,
right, so that's why they can't kill it with chemo. You can't burn it out. You can't cut it out. It's there. The body doesn't even know it's there. And as you know, if it's, let's say it's a brain cell or an eye or whatever body part you choose, it doesn't remember that function. It only remembers growth. It only remembers replicate. And so that when that signal is shut off, the body then can consume it and digest it, and you pass it out through excretory process. And that's really sum and total of the whole genius of that process that was given to us.
But I thought HCG only is produced when you're pregnant.
By the ovum. But
okay, so how does that work in men then?
Well, it's in the cancer cell. It's the blood cell. In the 1920s, Dr. Otto Warburg got a second Nobel Prize for discovering that the lack of oxygen to the blood cell is the source or the beginning of the cancer through the fermentation of the blood sugar. Well, I think if we all went outside right now and overstressed our muscles, you'd feel that side effect, but it would pass away. You'd get a cramp and your what is it called, lactosis, or, you'd pass. It would go away. But when the blood cells are overstressed to the point where and go to anaerobic state from lack of oxygenation, from laziness, from poor digestion, from too many chemicals, whatever the cause is irrelevant. It's the outcome. So once you can name, well, this causes cancer and that causes cancer and all the search for a cure and all that. But once the cells turn cancerous, they then start to replicate without the function, just the replication only. They become immortal in their own way.
So the lack of oxygen, if you've got, let's say, a carcinoma in situ type of cell, irrespective of organ system, it could be lung, it could be stomach, it could be anything. So you've got a carcinoma in situ, which means it's precancerous. It's just sitting there, and we create those cancer cells all the time, and most of us will, go to our death with those in situ things. But as soon as the oxygen is lowered, it allows those in situ cancer cells to start to replicate. Do I have that correctly?
And rapidly, yes.
So that goes along with that paper that was just put out by that pathologist in Eastern Europe, the head of Bulgaria, the head of pathology for the country of Bulgaria, saying that all of this masking stuff that they're doing now, that is cutting down the oxygen levels in most people who are insisting that wearing a mask is a good thing, that they expect to see a 200% increase in cancers that were carcinoma in situs that would have never turned into cancer under any other circumstances, or the vast majority would have not, are now we're going to see a 200% minimum over the next 2 to 3 years, is what that paper said, increase of carcinoma, of cancer, of real cancer, just by people into wearing this mask all the time because they bought the bill of goods about the tyranny. And now it's one more way of this depopulation agenda is working. I mean, the masks are not only separating us and lowering humanity as we know it, now it's going to increase the incidence of cancer. Do I have that correctly?
Absolutely. You got it right on the head. So how do you avoid that? Now, I admit I'm obese. I put on a lot of weight since I retired. But I've been working out every day, 2 to 4 hours in the gym. So by the grace of God, I'm in perfect health with the exception of the overweight. I don't have those problems. I take a physical at the VA, nothing. Even though they try to convince me I need, statins or something like that. I said, no, I don't need any of that. Well, let's take a blood test. Okay, take a blood test. My blood pressure is perfect and so forth. So why am I saying that? Because I'm oxygenated. I get in the pool. I crank it out. I stress myself, not as much as I could or should, maybe, perhaps. But the point is that you have to oxygenate yourself to maintain, even if you just go for a walk, something. to keep your body oxygenated. Now, having said all that, now we're take it back to you go to a doctor and they do very poor blood tests, or they do a PET scan, or they do a CAT scan, or they do the worst of all, the pressure on your breast,
The
mammogram,
mammograms. Mm-hmm.
and which by themselves cause cancer because you're radiating that soft tissue that and you're not only that, you're compressing it, you're harming it. So all of those tests don't prove anything, really. You got a picture, okay, I have ascites under my skin from injections and from gathering of chemicals that we ingest through the air, but that's not cancer. It's just it's a fatty tissue. So, but the doctor, an oncologist, he's not looking for that. I just had a call from a lady in Canada last week. Well, I was lifting weights and I dropped the weight on my chest and I got this hematoma, and I went to the doctor and they went to the emergency room. They said, you got to go outside right now, get in the ambulance. We're going to take you to the oncology. And she goes, I'm not doing that. She had the presence of mind to say that much, but they scared her. More than likely, nothing is there. So the first thing that happens when you go into, I know I've veered from the story, but the first thing that typically happens when somebody is told they have cancer is they're not just told they have cancer, they're told you have cancer and you're going to die. You got to get in right away. There's no chance for you to chew on it, to go home and study, to go, do I want, and second opinion, anybody who's ever bought a new car, if you go to a Cadillac store, you say, well, I'm going to go shop. You go to another Cadillac store, you get the same exact story. Maybe a different salesman, different technique, but still the same. So if you go to one oncologist and he tells you these things, the next one is going to tell you the exact same thing because their tools are the same.
I don't quite agree with that, Charles, and I'll tell you why. I mean, first and foremost, I agree with you that people, if you ever get the diagnosis of cancer, when I do community talks, I always say the very first thing you need to do is to sit down and take a deep breath. Refuse to get on the fast conveyor belt that goes from x-ray to biopsy to consultation to surgery to chemotherapy within 5 days or less. And believe me, I've seen it. So I always tell people the first thing they need to do is to sit down and take a deep breath. The consultations that we do with people is people are either just diagnosed with cancer and they want to know what their options are, or they've been through the whole protocol and they want to know what they can do to detox their body and get better. We don't actively treat cancer in our clinic here in Cleveland, Ohio. We just don't. And the main reason for that is I believe that cancer is a really important subspecialty. And if you're going to treat cancer using alternative means, then that ought to be 99% of your focus in your clinic. You can't kind of do a little bit of cancer and do other things too. Yeah, exactly. But I will tell you, and this has been my experience, even with conventional cancer care here in Cleveland, Ohio, with the Cleveland Clinic, University Hospitals, Metro, huge big system here, particularly the clinic. I've had patients that have come in and they've been told by a particular oncologist, let's just use breast cancer because that's what we see the most of in our clinic, that they've been told that this was the protocol, that they need to do this, and these 3 drugs, 5 days a week, for the next 6 weeks or whatever. And I've challenged many of those patients to go and get a second and third opinion from a conventional oncologist. And the questions that you need to ask are, what are the fewest number of drugs that I can do for the shortest period of time that you, doctor, think will do the job? And the range of that has been staggering to me, even as a physician, because I kind of thought the recipe was the recipe. If you get a triple negative breast cancer, or you get one that's HER positive, ARCH2 negative, whatever, I thought that there was a protocol, a standard. There is not. And when I've seen what people have come in and gone from, like I said, 3 drugs daily, 5 days a week for 6 weeks, down to 1 drug once a week for 8 weeks. Same cancer, same diagnosis, same pathology, because it's the only area of medicine, conventional medicine, that doctors get paid per prescription of what they do. They order in the chemotherapy, they get paid for it, they make a staggering amount of money. In fact, I will tell you, a few years ago, I was really frustrated with what I was doing. And just so one night for fun, I went out to Indeed and I put in Indeed, physician jobs, and I wanted to see what was available out there. And I stumbled across an oncology site, and there was a job that was being offered, fresh out of school, 2 years of experience or less, $400,000 a year base salary, percentage of every chemotherapy drug that you use, $30,000 a year put into your IRA, 10 weeks a year of paid vacation / CME. This is fresh out of school oncologist, $500,000 a year for one place in Texas. So it's really not true, or at least it's not been my experience that every single one of them will tell you the same thing. In fact, quite to the contrary, that's why I've always challenged patients, because I'll tell patients, oh, trust your intuition about your cancer, trust it, and make a matrix, like all your questions down the side and every single one of the doctors you're going to talk to, and fill it in like a spreadsheet in a matrix and gather all the information. When you've gathered all the information, sit down and pray. Get really quiet. Ask your intuition. Ask God. Talk to the people closest to you, your spouse and friends. Make a collective decision and then put tight boundaries around it. If you care to share that decision with anybody else in your family, friends, whatever, say, this is what we've decided we're going to do. Me and my spouse, my closest best friend, and I prayed about it, and this is what I feel is the right thing for me. Now, going forward, unless you come to talk to me to support my decision, then we're not talking about it. The conversation is completely off the table, because the last thing you need at that point is confusion. Sure. And so you need to, we can talk about the weather or COVID or whatever you want to talk about. We can talk about basketball. But unless you're here to say, you go, Susie Q, you stick with it. We'll pray for you. We'll make sure that this is the right thing for you. Then we don't talk about it. It's not on the table, because you don't need to have confusion. And I've had some patients, Charles, that they really feel like in their heart, they need to do at least some level of conventional therapy. I have other people that say, if I get one dose of chemotherapy, I know it's going to kill me. I just know it. Well, people need to listen to that. They need to pay attention to it. But I will tell you that my experiences as a physician, it shocked me that there wasn't a standard recipe for treatment of cancer.
I'm grateful for that, because I've labored under that prejudice for a long time. And I think part of it is just from where I sat, the amount of people dying, that overcame that correction you just gave me, overcame that. It's taken a long time to come to terms with it. The other aspect of that, we have a blood test that was developed by my chief investigator, Dr. Dietmar Schildwechter. Spent 20 years developing the test that can pre-diagnose through a blood test cancer up to 2 years before it happens.
And what is that blood test?
Pardon?
And what is that blood test? Is it still available now?
Yeah, it's available, and it's inexpensive, and it's covered by Medicare to a degree. I think like 2/3 perhaps. It's only like $400. If you got, so the threat that we posed, or my group posed, or this between the ability of Naissance medicine and the ability to pre-diagnose, in my opinion, what we presented as a possibility was, if everybody in America, I know this is a broad stroke, everybody in America, you have to have a blood test once a year or twice a year. At that stage, if we see the onset or the beginning, then you go on 1, 2, 3 cycles of enzymes or some 14X or something, as you say, make your choice, and then do another blood test. And you see where, because it not only can see where you are, see what your immune system's doing, see what your liver is doing, see the whole picture biochemically, you can track the progress and regress. So now say, all right, I'm doing straight chemo. I don't care what anybody says. Okay, take the test again after they're done with that, see what happened. So that presents a huge threat to an industry that's, since they put me out of business in the 90s, over 30 million people, 30 million Americans. Go look at NIH statistic. I'm probably underestimating. 30 million gone. Their families are wiped out. For those who are on Medicare or Medicaid and don't have any real assets, they get a certain amount of treatment. But those who have assets, as John Rappaport said on one of the interviews with Catherine Austin Fitts, when he did a private discussion with one of the oncologists. He said or one of the heads of one of the hospitals said that's where the real gold mine is. I've talked to people that have gotten bills for millions of dollars for some of the treatments, just way out of proportion with. And I also have talked to people. There's a lady in Pittsburgh who 2 years ago was told that she has a type of uterine cancer that's incurable at Sloan. Sloan told her, this is incurable. There's nothing we can do. Your length of time of life is X, very short. And she went through consultation, just like you said. She thought she did exactly what you said. She got a surgeon. I don't like this surgeon. All he's talking about is me. I want to know about what's going on with my body, not with his body, with his life. She finally convinced somebody at Sloan to do the surgery, and he couldn't make it when it finally came down to it. She got another female doctor in this case, and it worked out perfectly. She decided to do 1 or 2 courses of chemo, and after 3, she said, "That's it, I'm done." They argued with her a little bit. She said, "No, that's it, I'm done." She then went on 714X. A year later, she went back, and they said, "We can't believe it. There's nothing here, nothing whatsoever." So because she told them what she had done, they told her that doesn't work. You're going to die. That was their response. But what I've seen more than once is somebody who does therapy such as ours and takes a short doses of chemo and short blasts of radiation in some cases. That has its place. I'm eclectic in that regard. I don't discount any of it, providing it's for the benefit of the individual, not for the group. So back to the story. In 1991, I formed an institutional review board under the laws of Congress under Title 21, Part 50, and Part 56, and under Part 50 to obtain informed consent. And submitted all our data. I collected all the data and submitted it to the FDA, which was run by David Kessler at the time. But I don't even know that David Kessler ever got to see it. It went through the IRB section, headed up by a guy named Paul Goebbels. Well, they wrote back and said, some other doctor wrote back and said, this is inadequate. Now, my institutional review board, our method of obtaining informed consent was this book. I mean, it's got everything you could possibly know about the therapy, including the law and both on the Sublime with a magazine article to the ultra scientific. So there's no excuse for you, depending on what level of academia you want to go on. It's there for the doctor, it's there for the patient, it's there for the lawyer. It's for anybody who wants to read it. So I did, in those days, there was no internet. There was no Amazon, Barnes and Noble hadn't even started yet. And it was because of my experience in helping other people get on the air, I got myself on the air because Chris Bird was incapable of doing an interview. Chris Bird he had a raw, raspy voice, for one, and for two, he couldn't tell a story in 5 minutes. He had to start from Genesis, God love him.
And then there was light, right?
Right. I mean, he was former CIA, spoke 6 languages. I mean, he knew everybody and every scientist known to man, and he just couldn't summarize. So I said, all right, I'll do it. And I have been given a gift that I can take this much data and boil it down to 5 minutes if necessary. So I started doing interviews, and we've got one of my first interviews was on KABC in Los Angeles in drive time when everybody's going to work in the morning, 7 in the morning. They got the jocks on just doing jokes and keeping people happy while they're stuck on the freeway. And they did a 5-minute interview. We got 3,000 phone calls. Boom, just like that. And that was consistent through. I mean, I used to gauge the show by how many times the phone rang in the first 3 minutes. And overall, we had over 50,000 terminal patients come through our doors, so to speak, not literally through our doors, but we would isolate or locate other doctors willing to take them on and help them out. And most times they would come in and they were within days or weeks or months of expiring. There's just too far gone. Every single one of them had been told, I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do. Please go home and prepare yourself for death.
And when
So,
was this? When was this?
1991 through 1996.
Wow. And what's happened since then?
Well, I mean, to say the least, I was at the tip of the spear. I mean, I was saying, if you've ever seen Ty Bollinger's 9-part series, The Truth About Cancer, everything that was said, huh?
I'm in it. I'm in it.
You're in it, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm also, you have a fabulous audience. They're so brilliant. So, in that series, if you listen to each one of the doctors and patients, everything they said, in sum, I was saying then, exactly word for word. And when he didn't call me for an interview, I was kind of, my ego got a little bruised, you know. But then I thought about it. These are the fruit of the tree from the seeds that we planted. And then I took, okay, Father, I got it. All right, I'm sorry. But so with all of that attention, we went from bankruptcy. Went from bankruptcy. And Dr. Schildvector, as the chief investigator, had his own clinic in Plaza Santa Maria in Jamaica. He had his own, he actually saved Steve McQueen's life before he came back to his oncologist, and the oncologist did exactly what he asked him not to do, which is open him up again. And Steve died as a result, but he actually pulled him back from there. So Dr. Schildvector was also a world-leading expert in fetal cell implant for regeneration of organs, not human fetal cells, but from bovine or from sheep that are raised on a special farm. And that's been, the German technology is maybe 80 years old, and the American technology is
that technology still around? And the reason I'm saying this is because I remember, golly, when would this have been? It may have been, let me see, probably in the early 90s.
Yeah.
My parents, I went to Mexico with my parents every year from the time I was 5. And they bought a condo down there, and they started going every year, probably through the 80s and the early 90s. My dad passed away in 96. But during that period of time, they would go for 3 or 4 months. And this whole stem cell injection therapy stuff the sheep stem cell stuff was really popular then. And I remember them buying a whole bunch of vials of that stuff and bringing it back. And I have a cousin who became an insulin-dependent diabetic rather suddenly when he was about 17. And he never really he's a couple years older than me, and he never really took much good care of himself. And he started to develop severe diabetic retinopathy. In diabetic retinopathy, for those that are listening, you get all the extra blood vessels in your eye, and then they start to rupture and bleed, and that's what causes the blindness in insulin-dependent diabetics. And he had at one point had gone to the Cleveland Clinic and had 1,000 laser treatments in between his 2 eyes, of these little lasers that they started cauterizing all of those blood vessels, and his vision was horrible. And he was also a chiropractor. And when my dad said, well, let's try this. And I remember we did 2 rounds of these sheep stem cell therapy injections. And they were big vials, and it hurt like the dickens to inject those big vials in each one of his butts in the back. And me as a physician, they called me over to the house to do them. They were big things. And we did, and it was like I think there were 4 vials, and then you waited a month and you did another 4 vials. And then he waited 3 months, and he went back to the Cleveland Clinic to get his eyes examined. And the Cleveland Clinic doctor literally did this. He picked up the chart, pulled over his slit lamp, looked in my cousin's eyes, looked at the chart, looked in his eyes, looked in the chart. And he said, are you really Mike Tenpenny? Is this really you? I mean, we must have the wrong chart here, because here's the pictures of the laser cautery things that we did to your eyes. He's like, no, that's me. It's who I am. And he said, your eyes are perfect. There's no retinopathy, no scarring, no anything. And that was within, I don't know, 3 to 4 months after that. So I have personal familiarity with what you're talking about. And are those things still available, or has all that stuff been completely shut down? That was in the 90s. So
Yeah.
is all
My
that been
contact
completely
in the
shut
90s
down?
with Dr. Schilbecker, I went to Hamburg with him because he was born in Germany, but he served in the Air Force here. His brother served in the Luftwaffe. He served in the Air Force. Anyway, we saw Dr. Miller, who was the, for lack of a better description, a custodian of the cells. And they raised the sheep on a special farm where there was nothing to hurt the body, and
So
then take
so are they still available or not?
as far as I'm aware, I haven't been. Dr. Miller, if he's still alive, he's got to be, I don't know, 90 years old or more. Um, so I could
Because I know
probably,
that,
I have
this
a couple
discussion,
contacts I could put you
and
in touch with.
because we've got to, I really want to have you like fast forward on your story here,
Okay,
because we've got
sure.
about maybe 15, 20 minutes
Okay,
left.
yeah. To finalize that, we have Dr. Schilbecker was arrested for developing two cancer remedies. One was for squamous cell, totally non-toxic, and the other was for melanoma, also non-toxic. Both protocols, and they came to his house, handcuffed him on the lawn, raided his office, and gave him an ultimatum: if you don't stop, you got a choice. We're going to take your license, or you're going to jail. He said, all right, take my license. So he started, his practice became a consultancy, and then he would take clients to Germany if they were able. Anyway, so in 1990, now it's 1993, Dr. Schilbecker, one of the first patients of Nason was a relative of George Bush, who was treated and cured. A lot of diplomats, a lot of high-level people used the 714X, and one of them was Congressman Berkeley Bedell, and he was terminal, and Dr. Schilbecker guided him through it and got him through it with 714X. Whatever else he did before that, I have no idea. But they testified before the Office of NIH for Alternative Medicine, or what it was called in those days, 1993, I believe it was. And at that point, we were able to have a 3-month supply, or a 1 month supply of any drug from any country for personal use. And after Berkeley Bedell, it was June of '92. After that testimony, within a month, the FDA shut it down. So no more, they're banned. People still can get it even till today, but it's banned if they want to mess with you at the post office. Then I testified before Congress in '93, the following year, basically saying that you're planning on managed care. It was Henry Waxman and Ted Kennedy, and I forget the rest of the panel, but those are the two big names. And they were planning this managed care, and Jay Rockefeller said out in front of the public, who he said, you're going to get a healthcare reform whether you want it or not. And those are all the things that fired my, rage at these people. That
So what happened to you, Charles, when you saw what was happening with the FDA and all the corruption? What happened to you? What did they do?
The first thing that happened was it made me totally enraged. The veteran came out in me, the warrior came out in me, and I set out to take down the FDA, take down big pharma. That was my goal, and I drove everybody crazy. I mean, everybody who knew me was like, "Oh my God, here he comes again!" And I was just so enraged, and it stayed that way for a long time. But so that fueled the need to learn everything I needed to know in order to help the American public overcome. And even till today, most people say, well, if it's so good, why doesn't everybody know? That was then. Then a year later, after all these interviews, they say, well, it's all about money. Okay, but here's the solution. Here's your solution. And they still go through the process. They don't have the confidence of self-confidence to go through it. So to get further into the story, in 1995, I was ordered to come to Rockville, Maryland. I was told point blank, if you don't stop doing what you're doing, we're going to find you guilty and put you in jail. And I said, I'm not stopping. You're killing people. You know it. We're saving lives, and you know it. And that's it. I'm not stopping. And so they indicted me. They raided my office. The agent showed up at 6:30 in the morning and took my Buick Riviera, which I had just paid for the day before, something like that. They took my car. They prosecuted me in the press, just like they do now. And then we went to trial, and I studied with my attorney. My attorney was a homeopathic doctor, and he was also an attorney who had fought the Nazis in Nazi Germany. So he had his own thing going on. So we get to trial, and the first day we were winning. Clearly, we were winning. And then the judge was ordered to come to Washington and had a private meeting with Chief Justice Rehnquist and President Bill Clinton. He came back the next day, and the trial was over. I was found guilty and sentenced to prison. They wanted to send me away for 19 years.
Wow.
And the charges that they put on me were not even law. They were agency regulation. The conspiracy to defraud, I said, who am I conspiring with? You're only charging me. Who am I conspiring with? He said, well, you're conspiring with your corporation. Now that was a precedent that now they can do that. The Supreme Court kind of said, okay, this is the way we're going to do it. But at that time, nobody had done it before. So now I have to file an appeal at the Second Circuit, and we argued that they were arguing for Dr. Seuss's suicide for Kevorkian in the Ninth Circuit, and they are arguing in the Second Circuit, same argument. And we said, well, if you can have Dr. Seuss's suicide, you must have the concomitant right to preserve your life through any means available. And the Second Circuit, after quite some time before they finally came up with a decision, they upheld the lower court, saying we're not going to identify any new rights, which wasn't a new right at all. You have right in your Constitution, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I now destroyed everything. Took the house, the cars, everything is gone. Money. My kids and my wife at the time, they all got jobs to help their mom, and we lost everything. And
you actually ended up going to jail, right? They actually put you in jail?
Yeah, I was in federal prison.
For how long?
For a year. I got beat up when I was in there. They drove my teeth through my lip, and I spent time in the solitary confinement. But overall, and while I was there, by the way, this may turn off some people. I helped the guy translate the Quran into modern day English, which was quite an experience. That was amazing. And I also taught a yoga class, and I was the camp cook.
Oh, wow. You were the
I ended up losing almost 100 pounds or over 50 pounds by being the cook. So anyway, because I got all the grapefruit I could want, But,
so how did you get out in a year if they wanted to put you in for 19 years?
Well, I think when the judge had been called to Washington, it was clear that there was something there. That should have never happened. And I think that he saw what I was doing. He knew what I was doing was not the wrong thing. And he told the FDA when they were on the stand, you guys really don't know what's going on down there, do you? Because I'd been granted a waiver by the Assistant Secretary of Health. And he asked Paul Goebbels, what about this waiver? He goes, I don't know about your waiver. He goes, you really don't know anything about what's going on down there, do you? And so the judge saw, till this day, I love that guy. He did me right considering all things. So, the next 22 years, I went back to working like a mule, and then I retired. And simultaneous to my retirement, President Trump issued the Right to Try Act. Well, the Right to Try Act is nothing more than what's already there, the right for informed consent. Now, granted, the Right to Try Act, they want you, the way it's written is you got to go through all your chemo and radiation, and then you have the right to try one more chemo that we're experimenting with. And my reading of it is, if you have the right to try, you can try what you got here too.
Exactly.
So, and 15 other things.
And the right to try anything first.
Yeah.
The act was, I agree with you, Charles. The title of the legislation, like many titles of legislation, like the Patriot Act and things like that, they all sound great until you actually sit down and read them. And
I love what Catherine Fitz said to you when you were on with her. She said, and we used to go in the back office and they come out with a bill, let's say, save the children. And we knew the way to understand it was to reverse it. It was like to kill the children.
Exactly.
So the long and the short of it is, when that act was passed, I realized I can speak again. I'm going to go back out there. I haven't spoken in 22 years other than one-on-one with somebody. And this is still a valuable tool. It's still available. The technology is still there. The truth is still there. And the truth of what's going on is even more insidious.
So can you tell people where they can access this test and where they can access this treatment, even if it's internationally? Because we got a pretty international audience here. Do you have a website or a place where they can get the testing through you, or what's the next step? Because we're winding down here in just a few minutes, and
okay, sure.
I know that that's really what people are wanting to know. They really
I want you to be so confident, whoever you are. I want you to be so confident that when somebody tells you have cancer, you say, "Oh, thank God! I thought it was something serious." You'll know exactly what to do about it. What I recommend is first you read the material, read the book. I mean, I could tell you, here's the phone number, call here and get the medicine.
Wait, stop. Read what book?
The book is called Do No Harm, 714X Defying a Hopeless Prognosis.
Do you have a copy of it there?
Yeah, you can go to Harmless 714X.
Pick it up. Show it to people.
Yeah, this is the old one. So this is not the actual. This is the original that I had to bring into modern day.
Do No Harm, and that's your book, right?
Yeah.
So Do No Harm. So where can they find it? Where can they buy it?
Go to Harmless 714X, Harmless 714X.com, and you can order it there. And if you put in Dr. T in the discount code, DRT, Dr. T, you'll get a $5 discount. I'm donating the proceeds to wherever Dr. T says I should.
Oh, God bless you. I didn't know you were planning to do that. Well, thank you so much. I mean, that's a surprise, people. I had no idea that he was planning to do that.
And I don't expect your endorsement. This is not an endorsement by Dr. T. This is just an interview. I mean, I'm a stranger. Take it for what it's worth. I'm just giving you the best. Look, let me put it this way. 30 years ago, they put me in they hammered me and took everything and put me in jail. You think that I'm insane, that I would continue to talk about it after all of that? If you do, okay. But I assure you I'm not. So they order the book there, or they can get it on Amazon. There I cannot control the price. It's $24.95 on Amazon, and you get the paperback version, and it's published nicely. And it doesn't come like this, but if you order online, like on harmless714x.com, it comes as an e-book, and you can read it that fast. Then, if you wish, I'm an open door. You can call me anytime. I'll coach you, I'll help you, I'll guide you. I won't tell you what to do or tell you what not to do, but I'll give you whatever phone numbers and so forth you need. Over and above the blood test, the same way. You come through us. It's either you can order it online, but I suggest you read about it first. But in the book, it looks something like this. It's called The Cancer and Immune Profile, and it covers a lot of things. We also use proteolytic enzymes. This is the final part. I'll let you go. Proteolytic enzymes, it was discovered in the 30s that in the transverse colon, there's a group of enzymes that exist naturally that when the body has cancer, they're no longer present. So these doctors got together and they figured out how to replicate those enzymes and put it back in the body. In those days, it was injected in, and the tumors start to shrink almost immediately. Dr. Schildvector took that same technology, what's called Wobenzyme back in the day, which is still available out there, but the FDA forced them to change the formula in the 60s. So Dr. Schildvector, the genius that he was, took that technology, had them replicated in pill form, and they're still available, as is the live cell therapy. So we use the enzymes for the digestive process and to eliminate the toxins. And we have other enzymes that are oral version of the live cell therapy. So give you an example, we had a client who looked like a basketball. He had liver cancer and he had diabetes for 20 years. He had been taking insulin, and He was on the enzymes 3 days with 714X. Insulin, no more. Like that, the regeneration would happen. Now, I'm not going to say everybody goes through that. Is this a panacea? No. Is it a guarantee? No, nothing is. But from our experience, if you can catch it early enough, I mean, some people coming in their terminal, and we'll go back to the reason they were able to put me in jail in the courtroom is because I went across the border and brought the medicine back for a kid named Billy Best who ran away from home to avoid chemotherapy. And it was in national news. His mom and dad were on Good Morning America. It was everywhere. And he was 13 years old. They gave him 1 dose of adriamycin, nearly killed him. He said, that's it, I'm out of here. I helped him get the 714X. He's still alive today. He wrote a book. You can find it on Amazon, Billy Best's story. And that's how they managed to bust me, because I had imported the medicine for somebody. So that's how they ramped up the charge. Otherwise, there was nothing to charge me with. All I was doing was talking, just like we are today. So there you have it.
Wow. That's just really, really special. So they can still get this molecule somewhere, the
They can still get
714X?
they can still get the medicines, they can still get the enzymes, they can still have the blood test. There's a second blood test that was done by microscope, but that's very difficult to get because
So if I wanted to order that today, if I, Sherri, Dr. Tenpenny, wanted to order that test, and I have someone in my family or a close friend that has it, what would be the steps I'd have to go through where would I go, and what are the steps I need to go through?
no, you don't
to
go
get that?
anywhere. We mail you a kit.
No, wait, you go. Meaning like a website, a phone number, where do I go
They
to
can
do that?
order over the website that I just gave you, or they just call and I'll arrange it.
So
Dr.
the primary place that people need to go first to learn more is harmless714x.com.
Correct.
And then
And
from
that
there,
has all the information.
from there they can learn about the test, about the molecule, and how to contact you.
Correct.
Okay.
If you ordered it from me right now, all right, I want it. We send you a kit. You draw off, I don't know, this much blood. How much is that? 100 cc's? I don't know how much that is.
Less than that, probably.
All right. A couple of vials. And you spin off the plasma, put the plasma back in the other vials, and you mail it back. And in a few days, you get a written evaluation with all the parameters and evaluation, so that it's not impossible to understand. If you just look at this is the normal, this is what you got. So
that's incredible, because these are the sorts of answers that people are really looking for. It's like because I think that with all this stuff with COVID-19, people don't want to go to the doctor. They don't want to go to the hospital. One of the travesties, when the CDC, the head of the CDC came out last week and said more people have died from drug overdoses and suicide than from COVID-19 syndrome or from this virus. That should have been a blast in people's heads and just blown up. I'm also wondering how many people have died of heart attacks, strokes, cancer, ulcerative colitis, bleeding. All sorts of things that would have normally been taken care of either from an alternative or from a more commonly conventional perspective, that people have not gone to the doctor, because now to go to the doctor, to even have access to the doctor, you have to have a COVID-19 test.
yeah.
You have to be screened if you want to go and get your cataract surgery or your knee replacement. You have to be screened by this data harvesting of your DNA in order for you to go in and get access to medical care. Those are other statistics that we'll probably never know the answer to. So if there is a way for people to find out about their cancer status, if they can get access to a treatment, get access to some counseling or some coaching by you, and people on your team, and to be able to do this, that would be awesome. So is this molecule something that people could take as a preventive? Is this something that they could take to just boost up their immune system? Can you talk about that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the 714X is injected intralymphatically, 3/8 inch 27 gauge needle into the lymph gland, the inguinal lymph gland. Now, people say, "Oh, I don't want to do that." Well, everybody does it on their own once you figure out how it's done, or maybe you'll get help from a friend or a nurse. But
You mean just in the inguinal area?
into lymph gland if you can get it, or near it. Yes.
Yeah, because people don't just generally have inguinal lymph node swelling.
No, well, it doesn't have to go into a swelling. You can feel the node through the skin a little bit and just slide it in there. Now, second to that, second best is aspirated or nebulized. And you can do it that way, particularly with lung cancer. But I will say this, of all the cancers, brain, breast, prostate, those are like knife through butter, you know. Even animals, horses, dogs, a lot of cancer in the animals, they respond even better because they don't have any argument going on in their head. You know?
So is this molecule, this 714X, I mean, is it considered a nutraceutical? Is it an amino acid? Is it an enzyme? I mean, where would you place it?
It's camphor, which has been used in medicine for, I don't know, 10,000 years maybe. And we even found in homeopathic Materia Medica they'd use camphor to cure skin cancer of the face, because they tried to bring that in my trial that, you know, that I'm full of baloney. So it's a very dilute solution of camphor. It's saline solution a little bit. The worst side effect ever is that you feel a warm sensation. People who do indeed have cancer where their lymphatic system is sluggish, if you want to say it that way, it immediately liquefies the lymph because of the camphor. You'll feel a warm glow. I've used it for several months at a time. I don't feel anything because everything's working. But I've heard a lot of people say that I felt something immediately.
So if this is something like, it's a sub-Q injection, right? Or you can nebulize it. Is it something you take once a month, once a week?
Once a day for 21 days, 3-day break, 21 days, 3-day break, 21 days. It depends on your status. I mean, if you're prevention, I would say 1-2 cycles. So it's a reboot. For somebody who is terminal pancreatic cancer, oh my God, now you got 2 years in front of you, really. And massive enzymes. I mean, look at Nicholas Gonzalez in New York City. He was curing cancer of the pancreas with enzyme therapy, and he suddenly died of mysterious causes. So you can even read up on him. He's got a huge book. Can't pull it off the shelf easily, but it's, you know, Nick Gonzalez was a brilliant physician. There's clinics in Tijuana you can still find that are using other therapies other than 714X. There's quite a few out there that are still reputable and still good. But when the cancer is there, I think the 714X should be the foundation of all cancer therapy because it stops the hormone that blocks the immune system. And after that, it's all about rebuilding your immune system.
So just in summary here, so because we're kind of at the end of our hour here, this is just an amazing information, Charles. I'm so grateful. I can't wait to investigate this closer on my own. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to go to your website. I'm going to look at your book. I'm going to see what other information is there. Because I think to be able to do this as a, you know, because one of the things I've been saying, I've done like 160 interviews in the last 4 months. So that's about 40 per month. And just to put that in context for people who are listening, I usually do about 35 interviews per year. And I've been doing about 40 per month. And so I think it's just really, really critically important to do this. And people will always say to me, what are the things people should be doing right now? Well, number one, I say, get your physical house that you live in order. You know, clean out your dead food, get rid of the white sugar, white flour stuff, get rid of all those clothes you're never going to be skinny enough to wear again. I mean, just get rid of it. Just clean, paint, do whatever. I just reorganized the furniture in my living room. It feels like a whole new place, so get your physical house in order. The second thing is get your body in order. This is something that they can do. They can order this test. They can get this product. They can read your book. The website, again, for the people who missed it on the first time around, the website is
harmless714x.com.
harmless714x.com. And Dr. Pixley graciously has said that if you want a $5 discount on the book and you put Dr. T DRT in there, that the monies, some of the monies will go into our organization, which I was not expecting at all. So this is the way that you can clean up your body. You can find out what's happening in terms of cancer. You can do this as a prevention. And the other prevention that you can do is you can go to our website, which is Vaxxter.com, V as in victory, AXXTER.com. And there's a button at the top that says detox your body. And this week only, it's through tomorrow. There's a $79 product that we're offering for $5 plus free shipping. Free shipping in the US and the UK. It's by a company, it's called Pure Body Zeolite. It's by a company. I keep my bottle here. I take 4 sprays twice a day. It removes aluminum, mercury, persistent organic pollutants. It's just a way to clean out your lymphatics and get rid of all those toxicities. So you can order that today by going to Vaxxter.com. At the top where it says detox your body, click on that button and scroll down and you can get a $5 bottle. And for $5, just try it. Sign up for the free shipping and see if it works. So that's cleaning up your physical body. And then the third thing that I've been telling everybody, which is most importantly, and I know, Charles, I want you to finish it up on this, is the most important thing people can do is get their lives right with God.
Absolutely.
It's really the most important thing. So if the world continues to go down the hill and go to crap, you've got your physical house in order, you got your body cleansed and cleaned and protected, and you've got your life right with God. If the world starts to turn around, because there have been points in time in history that we thought the world was coming to an end, and it starts to turn around, what a great recipe, right? Clean up your physical house, get your body in order, and get your life right with God. So what would you like to leave everybody else?
I saw 2 comments here. That one asks, is there any long-term side effects? There's no side effects at all, 0. After millions of uses all over the world since 1968, this medicine causes no side effects whatsoever. Using the enzymes, you might have a cathartic in the beginning, but after that, nothing. I mean, not even a bad burp. So that's
bad burp, as opposed to a good burp.
Sometimes you go, ew. As far as I'm going to say something, maybe it's funny, maybe you won't take it funny, but if you really love Father, really love God, then you're capos mafioso. You're in the greatest Cosa Nostra in the world, in the universe, because there's nobody more powerful than Capo de Tutte Capo. I mean, the man, the Father, Jesus, there's nothing more powerful. So if you have that in you, if you can, as they say, put on the armor, that armor is impenetrable. This week on your chat room, you were talking about, and God will send his angels, his angels will talk to your soul, or whatever. I forget exactly the quote.
That was with our happy hour with Dr. T.
Right.
Yeah.
And the angels are there. Now you can talk to those angels. They'll talk to you. You can hear them. That's called supra-physical communication. When you're talking to, what's the old saying? When you talk to God, it's a dialogue, and when God talks, it's a monologue. So he's listening. If you're talking to him, he's listening, and sometimes you get an immediate response. If you're listening, you're driving down the road, you better take a right. I'm going this way. You turn that way, you go, oh, roadblock. This is called kinesiology. Your soul knows before you know. This is provable. That's scientifically provable kinesiology. So that's, to me, the most direct evidence that God's talking to you, because you've got this built-in kinesiology. And the whole time that I was preparing for the trial, I heard him say, you're going to just take your arrow and shoot for the heart. And if you miss, you miss. But if you don't try, and all of this, everything that happened to me, our family, all of that is nothing, 0. It's 30 years ago now, 25 years ago. It's nothing compared to the millions and millions and millions of people dying every single year, horrible deaths, and the trillions of dollars that are being siphoned from our system in the name of what I call the death for profit business. So you want to beat the death for profit business, educate yourself. What's, you know, where'd you spend $20 on last week? Nothing. It's nothing. If you don't learn, what can I say?
It's awesome. Well, Charles, thank you so much for joining us here today on Zoom and on Facebook Live. We've recorded this on Zoom. I know we're going to put it up on disseminate.tv. So disseminate.tv is our censor-free platform that everybody that's got videos that they want to store them and share them, I encourage everybody to go to disseminate.tv. If you want to have a private social media chat that'll never be censored and never be shut down, you can go to our other platform, which is uniting.zone. And those are so we're going to take this video, we're going to put it up on Disseminate. All my Instagram lives I do every Monday morning myself or with a guest is on disseminate.tv. We do happy hour with Dr. T every day, 6 o'clock to 6:30 p.m. on Instagram. And we put those up on Disseminate. We also multi-purpose that content. So we get to do a video on Disseminate. And then I put it in writing over on happyhourwithdrt.blogspot.com. So if anybody's missing them and they would like to share them, I would love to have you guys go over to Blogspot and put in comments and share those things, because it's actually kind of a pretty site, and it's a way to reach a lot of people. So we're going to have everybody go to your Harmless 714X. And I just have to say this, Charles. You brought it up at the very beginning, but yesterday, when we did, or day before yesterday, on our happy hour on Monday, the verse that we use, because at happy hour is we share a beverage, we share some happy thoughts, we share a word of God, and then we pray. And what was on Monday? It was 2 Chronicles 7:14, which is this, Harmless 7:14. And I'm going to just read it as a way to close us out here. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their evil ways, then I will hear them from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land. So there's some criteria there. We say, like, God bless America, and heal our country, and pray for our this and that. Well, there's some criteria there first. My people become humble and pray and seek God's face, then He will heal the land. So it's interesting that you are healing the land in our bodies, healing up our bodies with this Harmless 714X. So I think it's just pretty amazing that all these things come together. It's kind of like God's word. God kind of like makes it happen.
Yeah.
And there have been some really cool comments that have come up here in the chat about praising God that these cures are now being released. People are finding out about them. Another great comment was, life right with God, amen. We all want to be a savior, but it's really God that is the overcomer, that it's really God that matters.
Yeah.
So with that, everybody, I'm going to, we're going to sign
God
off
heals,
here today.
the doctor takes the fee.
Exactly. There's some truth to that. So thanks for joining us here today. It's been fun. It's been extremely informative. I'm sure we're going to have you on happy hour with us some night, because that'll be really fun to do.
I'm ready.
So, and if there's anything else that we can do, but so if you guys want more information, go to harmless714x.com. Get the book, learn about the lab tests, learn about the product, take it prophylactically if you're healthy, maybe perhaps do some self-treatment if you've got some cancer things going on. And until we meet again, Charles, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's the best
everybody
interview
who's joining us, and we'll see you again real soon. Take care. Okay.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Bye-bye.